Like 5 bags. All right, welcome everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order. I know everyone's just getting their plates, but Speaker Schultz has a hard flight to catch, I know, so we all want to leave plenty of time, and we've got a little business to start us out. So I want to welcome everyone back. I hope you had a great summer. We have a lot of guests here tonight that we want to recognize, a lot of elected officials. We have our Kane County Commissioners that travel clear over, so thank you. Wave or stand. We've got Celeste, we've got Patty, and their spouses, so they're awesome conservatives, always helping us here in Washington County, so thank you. Good to have you. We also have, did Logan make it in? Logan, thank you for being here. Remind me what district you're running for. 69. So he's running to be House District 69 over in the eastern part. So welcome. We're so glad you came. And then we have our wonderful Sunshine Caucus members kind of spread throughout, I think. Senator Don Nixon, thank you for being here. We have Representative Walt Brooks, Colin Jack, and we had Neil Walter. I think he had to slip out. Good. And Joseph Ellison in the back. I was looking for you. Thanks. Thank you for being here. We also have some city officials. We have Mayor Bill Hoster. We have Councilwoman Michelle Tanner. I think I saw her come in. Let's see. Did I miss any other city officials? Well, yes, of course, Sheriff. He's county. Thank you. Sheriff Brooksby is here. We have County Commissioner Victor Iverson. Thank you. Appreciate it. We also have our school board member, Lorene Cox. Somewhere. Thank you, Lorene. And Congresswoman just slipped in. So Celeste Malloy is here. Welcome. She flew down special to be with us. So thank you so much. And did I miss anyone else? I apologize. I'm looking around. I think we covered the elected officials, so thank you. And we have many new guests with us, so thank you if this is your first time joining us. We always meet the first Thursday. Typically we're luncheons, but this is our special September social, so we're glad you made it. I'm going to run through a couple quick announcements. There's a lot of stuff going on right now this time of year, so you can look at your agenda calendar, and also if you get the county party newsletters, they have all of these events in there as well. We have the presidential debate is on Tuesday night. If you want to join, we have a watch party in Hurricane. The Butlers are hosting us. Thank you, Butlers. So if you need information on that, check the Facebook page. We'll have that. There will also be a vice president debate coming up as well, so watch for that. On September 30th, there's a meeting with our Sunshine Caucus to help answer questions about the upcoming amendment on the initiatives. So that's an important one. If you're not sure about that, you can come and learn. That's going to be at the St. George Library on September 30th at 6:15. Let's see. What other big events am I missing, Lisa? Constitution Day. Thank you. That's a very important one. Constitution Day. So Republican Women is partnering with the county party, and we will have meet the candidates at the Burton-Worthen Park, and we'll also have booths. So all the candidates and like Republican Women will have a booth there where we'll go over different amendments. It's a fun family event. There's lunch, entertainment. So please, and we'd love to have your help at the booth if you want to help with the Republican Women booth. And so that will be Saturday the 21st, 11 to 1. So watch for that. We'll remind you, get another flyer out on that. And then a couple of housekeeping things. If you're new, the note cards on the table. If you have a question for Speaker Schultz, write your question on that. We'll gather those up so we can get to as many questions. He has willingly said he'll take as many as he can. So, and then we do our volunteer hours. There's some more forms at the back. I didn't put them on the tables this time. But any kind of political volunteering you've been doing and non-political, any like church or Community service, please write those down for us. We're keeping track of all the volunteer hours, so feel free to grab one of those. We also have that quilt back there that we've been doing the last few months. This is our honor flight quilt. So if you want to buy a raffle ticket for it, they're $1 or 25 tickets for 20. And we're raising money to pay for another honor flight for a veteran. So we'd love to have your support. We'll auction that off at our next lunch in October. So that's what that quilt is. Stop by after if you want to buy some tickets for that. And I think that was a lot to throw at you, so thank you. We're going to start with our prayer by our chaplain, Sharon Simmons, and then we'll have our Americanism and Pledge by Charlotte Devlin. Following Charlotte, we're going to have Joanne do a membership report, and then we'll turn the time over to Alexis to introduce our speaker.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful to Thee to be reunited after the summer break and grateful for the safe return of those who traveled. We're thankful to Thee for our host, the Abbey Inn, and thankful to Thee for the food Thou provides for our nourishment this evening through Carrie and her staff. We're thankful to Thee to welcome this evening's guest speaker, Utah House Speaker Mike Schultz. We're grateful he's here and we look forward to hearing from him. We're grateful to Thee for the many blessings bestowed upon us thus far this election cycle, for our candidate's successful June debate, for the failed attempt on our candidate, for VP candidate J.D. Vance, for Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, and RFK's support of our candidate, for the VP choice on our opponent's side, for the exposure of the inadequacies of and the corrupt Secret Service leadership, and for the increasing and continued awareness of citizens on the direction of our nation, and many, many more blessings Thou hast bestowed. We're grateful to Thee for the lives of David Dutch and James Copenhaver, who were seriously injured and hospitalized on July 13th and returned home to their loved ones to recover. Father, we ask Thy blessing for our host and caterer. May they continue to support our club. We ask Thy blessing for Mike Schultz. May his leadership keep our house focused on what is best for Utahns. We ask Thy blessing for our national GOP candidates. May they remain safe, and may their campaign continue to unify our nation against those who harm it. We ask Thy blessing for our Jewish citizens. May they be kept free from harm, and for our ally Israel, may her fight against evil be triumphant. We ask Thy blessing for our service members and civilians in the Middle East who are in peril daily. May they remain safe. We ask Thy blessing for Corey Compertori's family and friends who lost their loved one on July 13th. May they feel the compassion and sympathy of our nation for their loss. And Thy blessing for David Dutch and James Copenhaver, that they have a complete recovery from their injuries. We ask Thy blessing for our candidate Donald Trump. May he succeed in exposing his opponent's anti-American values. And may the outcome of Tuesday's debate change more hearts and minds about who is best to lead our country. And for our candidate J.D. Vance, for his debate next month, may he expose his candidate's anti-American values and his untruthfulness and his history as governor. We ask Thy blessing for the families of those killed and injured in yesterday's school shooting in Georgia. May those who lost their loved one feel the sympathy and compassion of our nation for their loss. And for those injured and their families, may they feel the same as their loved one recovers, and may each one injured have a complete recovery. Lastly, Father, we ask Thy blessing for 3 club members, for Yvonne Wall, whose husband Robin is battling cancer. May he return to better health. For Associate Member Chad Benyon, who is grieving the loss of his mother Carol. And for Associate Member and Vice Chair of our county party, Barry Sawyer, and his wife Tina, who are grieving the loss of Tina's mother. May our members know we pray for them and extend our heartfelt compassion for the difficult time they are experiencing. Father, we humbly ask these blessings in the name of Thy beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
I think most of us know the story of the Star Spangled Banner, but this particular rendition has a few little twists in it that I didn't know about, so I'd like to share them with you. In mid-September 1814, Francis Scott Key, a 35-year-old American lawyer and amateur poet, along with a U.S. official, boarded the British flagship on the Chesapeake Bay. They hoped to persuade the enemy to release prisoners who had been recently arrested. These tactics were successful, but when it came time for him and his companion to paddle home, their host said, "Hold your rowboats." The Americans had seen too much. The British were moving in position to position to blast the daylights out of Fort McHenry, about 8 miles away, and could not let Key and the others report on what they had seen. On September 13th, Key and the others watched as the barrage on Fort McHenry began. British ships let loose with their cannon as night fell. When darkness arrived, Key saw only red erupting in the night sky. The scale of the attack indicated the British would surely win. The hours passed slowly, but in the clearing smoke of the dawn's early light, on September 14th, he saw the American flag, not the British Union Jack, flying over Fort McHenry, announcing the American victory. As soon as Key was allowed to move away from the British ships, he put his thoughts on paper while still aboard his boat. Interesting, he said his words to the tune of a popular English drinking song to Anacreon in Heaven. It became a big hit almost immediately and was widely distributed under the name Defense of Fort McHenry. Newspapers up and down the U.S. published it, and within weeks, Key's poem/song was immortalized. A music printer soon took the liberty of changing the title to the Star-Spangled Banner. The song remained popular throughout the 19th century and was often played at military ceremonies, although it was not yet the national anthem. The Star-Spangled Banner was a symbol of unity throughout the Civil War, and it finally became the U.S. national anthem in 1931 when the U.S. Congress passed a bill making it so, and President Herbert Hoover signed it into law. Now please stand with me and recite the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed, at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Okay, I just want to do, my name's Joanne Brenton, a really quick just membership report. Thank you to all our new members. If we have new members that haven't been recognized, would you stand up so we can just, is anybody here? Michelle, I know you're a new member that hasn't been recognized. We've also got Kathy Beckman, Holly Barker, Donna Sutton, and Neil had to pop out. But thank you. We love our, thank you for joining. And since we have Celeste with us, I just wondered if you wanted to, I'm gonna defer the rest of the membership time to just say, we love our members, we love our gym members, but please join us if you haven't. Men, join as associates, and our gym reception we just had is if you join as a fundraising option, where you can be a silver or a gold member, and it helps us to not fundraise. So thank you so much. We love this club. But if you want to just take 5 minutes, I don't know, and say hi since we. Okay, that's all right. So I will just now turn it over to Alexis.
This is my favorite part. I love introducing people. Actually, Representative Brooks is at our table, and I was thinking about how fun it was when I got to talk to his wife and hear about how they have to bake cookies every time he gets the flamethrower out for the fire department. So we learned some interesting things about our speakers. And I'm just going to read to you this very sweet, I'm totally going to blame this on hormones, but it's a very sweet letter from Speaker Schultz's mom. She says, from the time Mike was 18 months old, he would stand at the screen door pounding and crying that he wanted to go outside. His first tractor experience was driving his John Deere tractor into a big drainage ditch at the age of 4. This is great. When his dad pulled him out, he wasn't even crying, but he was all wet and covered in green mossy crap. By the time Mike was 10, he wanted a job earning his own money. So we set him up in the business of catching and selling worms. Like my boys would love that. By the time he was 12, he was milking cows for the dairy farmer through the field. I can't believe we would let him get up in the wee hours of the morning and drive the car through the field so he could milk cows. He always seemed to get himself and the car home in one piece just in time to go to school. And then she adds, but I'm sure there's a lot of stories that we haven't heard. Mike hated school and reading. We did get him hooked on the Lewis L'Amour books. I'm sorry, now I'm gonna have to look this up. That's right, I'm having a hard time living that down now. His dream was to someday have a big ranch in Montana. We are so grateful he fell in love with Utah and decided to be a Utah rancher. At the age of 15, he had saved enough money from the worm and milking jobs to buy a Ford Bronco. He spent the next year fixing it up. After he got his license, we had a hard time keeping him in school. I could see that. He and his friends just wanted to go mudding and enjoy the great outdoors. At 16, he went from roofing to framing houses. It was actually a miracle he graduated, not because he wasn't smart, but because he was bored with the book learning. After graduation, he got talked into taking an indoor job at, and I might mispronounce this one too, Autoliv. He hated that job. Mike chose not to go to college, but instead started his own construction business. We have often kidded that Mike attended the School of Hard Knocks. At the age of 30, Mike went through some really hard times. It was the only time I'd ever seen him truly depressed. His sister-in-law thought maybe some shopping therapy would help. She said, let's try this one. Oh, okay. All right. She said, Mike, what is the one thing you have always wanted and just never bought for yourself? The next thing we knew, he came home with a new Maserati sports car. As he took me for a ride, I got after him for going into debt for such a luxury. And he said, Mom, I know better than that. I paid cash for it. She says she was in shock. His father and I had no idea he'd become so successful. Mike has come from humble beginnings. It's been his hard work ethics, being teachable, and learning from mentors that have made Mike the man we are so pleased with today. Then she adds, "Love you, Mikey, Mom," at the bottom. So offer a warm welcome to Speaker Mike Schultz.
Well, moms have to be nice, right? They have to love you no matter what you do. So just know that's a very biased opinion from my mother. It was a very dear, sweet person. I love her very, very much. I'm very grateful for all that she and my father taught me growing up. If you want to know the other side of who Mike Schultz is, talk to my ex-wife, okay? And you will get all of the stories. And if you want to know who really Mike Schultz is, talk to my wife. So she'll give you a good balance, both the good and the bad. So because we all know we all have that. So thank you, Alexis. That was very nice and a sweet gesture to reach out to my mom. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me here today. It's an honor for me to be here today. I'll talk a little bit later about why I love Washington County. But before I get started, I like to do things just a little bit different. And, if I'm standing up here talking the whole time, you're going to get bored and I'm going to get bored. My mom told you all how quickly I get bored. So I'm going to be a little bit impatient. You're going to see me walking around here in a minute. And I want to have a little bit of fun with this. So I want you to fill out the question card and get involved and take some time and let's have a back and forth. I think it's important for me. Because it helps me learn where the population is and the things that are important to you all are by having that interaction. And it's rather than me sit up here talking to you, I want to interact and have a conversation. I want to hear what's important to you, and I think we can do that a little bit through the questions. So I think Alexis and my mother did a pretty good job introducing myself, so I'm not going to go too much about that, other than I'll tell you a little bit about my family. I have 6 kids, amazing kids, a very sweet wife who is very supportive of what I do. She's not with me as much as I would like to have her with me because she's home with our kids. And a few things that we love. Again, I'm a very proud father, so family's important. Mentioned I have a ranch. That's where I kind of walked away from most of the business side of things that I was involved in earlier in my career, and just to focus on the state of Utah and my ranch. I have a passion ever since I was a little kid to own and operate a cattle ranch and not a dairy farm. You all heard for 12 years old, plenty of getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and going and milking cows. So I want nothing to do with dairy cows. So I love the cheese though and the ice cream. So but you'll never get me to drink milk. So I seen what those strainers looked like when we were done. So those of you that have been around know what I'm talking about. So, I love Utah a lot, and I love Utah because of the opportunities that it provides. I truly believe that I wouldn't be where I'm at today without having an opportunity to grow up. And I thought it was rural back then until I learned about southern Utah. But it was a small community, Hooper, Utah. It's in Weber County. I still live there today. I've lived there almost my whole life. I love the opportunities that Utah has provided me. And I want my kids and my grandkids to have the same experiences that I had growing up. So keeping Utah is super important to me. And that's one of the goals that we'll talk about a little bit later. So let's talk about the nation a little bit, the Republican Party. And by the way, the prayer was amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that. That was a wonderful prayer. And I appreciate recognizing the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump and what that meant. I mean, you think about what that meant to our country and what happened. Last time we had assassination attempt was on Ronald Reagan. You guys probably know this better than me, but I think it was 1981. I think I was in first grade. I will never forget my teacher turning that on the black and white. We still had black and white in Hooker Elementary back then, and turning it on, and we watched the events unfold as he was, and watched the video replayed. And fortunately, he was okay. Still to this day, one of my favorite presidents. I think probably most of you feel similar. We love Ronald Reagan, and so to have something like that happen roughly 23 or 43 years later, here caught us all off guard. I think we were all unexpected by that. But it was really interesting for a moment, and I want to, you'll hear me, I will give credit where credit is due. I can't give a lot of credit to Democrats, okay? But I'm going to give a little credit to most of the Democrats. They were very sincere, most of them were very sincere in their concerns for what had just happened, and recognizing what had just happened in our country. And most of them spoke up and said, this is not okay, regardless of what party. And so it kind of reminded me a little bit of a 9/11 moment when our country was under attack, and you felt that moment of the country coming together for just a minute. But most importantly, I think, now that's all gone out the window, right? They've all forgot about that. But most importantly, I think one thing that it did was it united our party. And you saw President Donald Trump come together, I think, as a bit different person. Those of you, I'm a huge fan of Donald Trump. I know his kids, some of his kids personally, they're close friends. And huge supporter, always have been. Huge supporter, almost since day one. I originally supported Marco Rubio in the 2016 election. As soon as Marco Rubio got out, I was a Trump supporter. I caught a lot of crap because I didn't support Ted Cruz, but I believed in Donald Trump. And so I've been with him almost since day one. What we watched Donald Trump, he has changed significantly over the last 4 years, and especially over the last couple months since that happened. And I believe for the better. One of the things that I appreciate about him most, what he's done, is he tried to help unite our Republican Party of the nation. He reached out to Governor DeSantis and Nikki Haley, and he brought them in and he invited them to the RNC. And by the way, what an amazing event. I got to meet the Butlers at the RNC convention. Yes, it was. What a highlight, right? And the excitement that came around the RNC and the Republican Party uniting, that's maybe dissipated a little bit overall with everything that's going on with the Bidens and Harris and the mess that went on there, and then the DNC. But I feel that's kind of dissipating in the country right now. There was a lot of excitement from a lot of people about the announcement of Harris, Kamala Harris, which is crazy to me because 6 months ago, we all remember Vice President Kamala Harris, and now the picture that the media paints of the presidential candidate Kamala Harris is two total different extremes, and it just blows my mind that everybody's forgot about Vice President Kamala Harris and the fact that she has done nothing for our country. Now she's running on solving all the problems, okay? There's a few people calling her out on that, and I appreciate that, but it's interesting to see the way the media works a little bit sometimes. But coming back to the assassination attempt on President Trump, and this is why I think he's so amazing. You saw President Trump, this was exactly, he grabbed his ear and he fell to the ground. The Secret Service jumped on him. I don't know the exact time, but 30 to 60 seconds later, he was standing up. Secret Service was surrounding him. And instincts, when that happens, instincts take over, right? You're not thinking clearly, you are operating instincts. The second he got on his feet, pushes the Secret Service away, raises his hand, says, fight, fight. That is instincts. That is a leader this country needs today. And I'm grateful that he is that type of leader. We don't always agree on things, and certainly there's times I scratch my head and think, why the heck did you say that? My wife scratches her head and says it to me, why the heck did you say that? You're probably going to say some of the things, say that about me today. And you know, the truth of the matter is there's no perfect person out there. There's not a perfect politician out there, but he cares about this country and he loves our country. And I think that's what's most important. And he is a good leader. And he's a, you look at where the world was at for the 4 years when President Trump was elected and where it's at today. And the fact that the media fails to point out the fact that we're dealing with wars today. We were closing down wars when he was president. We did root out terrorism. He did root out terrorism across the world. And now it's back. You could go down the list, the economy, the whole host of things. And so, and we'll get into a little bit more some other things here in a minute, but let's bring it back to Utah. So Utah is facing some very unique challenges, right? And so we'll talk about a couple of those unique challenges. I'm going to talk about one that's been the buzz lately, Constitutional Amendment D. Let me set the stage for where this started a little bit. So 2018, well, let me go back. 2015, there was a couple groups, and they were pushing really hard Medicaid expansion and medical marijuana on the state at the same time. And even the legislation that came through on the medical marijuana, it was not necessarily medical marijuana, it was opening the doors up for recreational marijuana. And, you know, at the time, Utah was not even ready. Let me say this, Utah legislature was not ready for medical marijuana. And I was one of those. I was not ready for medical marijuana here in the state of Utah. And then at the same time, the ballot initiative came on Medicaid expansion. The groups that tried to pass Medicaid expansion at the legislature killed the Medicaid expansion. It was Obamacare, and we successfully killed that for several years in a row. And the big money behind that initiative got together and they ran a ballot initiative. Same time they ran a ballot initiative on redistricting and better boundaries and an independent commission to draw the maps. And let me tell you, that commission was anything but independent, okay? Just know that. They passed those ballot initiatives, and what passed at the ballot box was much different than what the public was told about. And let's start with marijuana. Medical marijuana, it was not medical marijuana. It was full-on recreational marijuana. And I don't have time to get into the details about that, but that's widely known, and even the people that pushed the initiative will tell you that was the intent behind it. So the legislature recognized that Utah was ready for medical marijuana because it passed at the ballot box. And so we worked really hard with the organizers of that initiative, and we worked really hard with the stakeholders. And you have today what I think is one of the best medical marijuana programs in the nation. It's very well ran, has pretty good scrutiny around it. Is it perfect? No. It will never be perfect because government's involved, okay? So it's just the truth. But overall, it's a pretty good system, and it accomplished what the intent of the voters were. And so the legislature followed that, and we got rid of what turned it into recreational marijuana. Medicaid expansion, that was a tough one for me because I did not want Medicaid expansion. I still don't want Medicaid expansion, but the voters passed it. And so I was, from 2018 or 2019 when we redid that, so I was my fourth year in the legislature. It was actually my first year in leadership. I was appointed a position in the budget I'm vice chair of appropriations. So I was a little bit involved in some of the negotiations that kind of went around Medicaid expansion. But I'll never forget what that did to the state's budget. So a couple things on that. So they went out and advertised, and the big money behind it, we won't get into who, but Foundation and some other groups went out and ran TV ads. Many of you will probably remember it. Vote for Medicaid expansion and give health care to children. Senator Gibson was there. He'll remember this. Walt Brooks was there. He'll remember this. Children already had health care, okay, in the state of Utah. They're talking about able, willing adults. That's what Medicaid expansion was about. They didn't tell you that. Also, what they didn't tell you was the tax increase. Most people had no idea that they passed a significant tax increase. They didn't tell you about that. They didn't tell you that that only lasted 2 years, only paid for the program 2 years. Why? Because they put some poison pills in the, I call it a poison pill. It was great for the providers and all the groups that came together that funded the ballot initiative to get it passed at the ballot box. But it broke the state of Utah because it did automatic increases to the providers. For anybody that provides Medicaid services, automatic increases. And they were significant, very hefty increases financially. Our state finance people told us that we had 2 years before we went upside down on the budget. And a decade from now, we're going to be significantly upside down. And the bill that passed, if we ever entered into another 2008 recession that we went into, it would bankrupt the state. There's no way that we could afford what was passed. I had a hard time personally because I didn't agree with Medicaid expansion, so I wanted to just get rid of it completely. But I had a hard time knowing that that's what the voters voted for and trying to find that balance. And so legislature came together, we worked with the groups, and we successfully found a way to move forward. Unfortunately, we kept Medicaid expansion. Some people would say, fortunately, we kept Medicaid expansion, but at the end of the day, it's what the voters passed. And so we felt like as a legislature, that's what we needed to try to do, was honor the intent. But take out the poison pills that they didn't know about, that kept the state financially sound today. Now, if that had not happened, I'm here to tell you, we would not have seen the tax cuts that the legislature has done over the last several years. And you certainly would see, because education is the largest portion of the state's budget, you certainly would have seen probably nowhere near any increases to education funding that we've done here in the state of Utah over the last several years. So that is the perspective and the reality that's out there. Now, what does that mean going forward? So, and then better boundaries, the independent redistricting was also that year. We we modified that. We kept it, but we changed the appointments and did a few other modifications to the better boundaries. And we moved forward, we had no problems. Comes to redistricting in 2020, a group did not like the maps and the fact that the legislature didn't adopt the maps of the fact that the legislature didn't like the maps that the independent redistricting committee drew. And so we adopted the maps that the legislature drew. The group got upset about that and filed a lawsuit against the state of Utah, saying that it was gerrymandering. Had nothing to do with the ballot initiative, okay? So it goes to the courts. The first court, basically throws it out of rules in favor of the state, first judge. They appealed it, and it went to the Supreme Court. Keep in mind, the question was being asked, the legislature shouldn't have been able to they should have adopted the boundaries that was drawn by the independent redistricting commission, which is a losing argument because if you read the Constitution says the legislature has the authority over redistricting. Okay, but that's a whole nother argument. That's why the first judge threw it out, okay? But it goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court totally took it to a whole nother level. Okay, they didn't even answer the question on the balloting. They took it to ballot initiatives. And they said the legislature shouldn't have the ability to change or modify what the voters passed at the ballot box. That was not even the question that was being asked by those that were suing the state of Utah and the legislature. That was done by what I'm going to say is a radical Supreme Court because of that decision. And an activist Supreme Court because of that decision. How do you take and make a stretch and go from a place that's not even being asked by those that are suing you and take and give them a pathway and say, you shouldn't ask this and make this argument. Here's the question that you should ask. And by the way, no legislature, you can't make those changes because it was passed at the ballot by the voters in the ballot box. That undid 130 years of precedents that have been set in the state of Utah and creates a whole set of super laws. Okay. Now let me tell you why that's important. So now it did leave a small area to where it said legislature can modify and make changes as long as it fits the intent and fits into to make those changes to fit into the statute. So very, very minor changes. Most attorneys would say couldn't even go anywhere near the changes that we made with marijuana. So we would have recreational marijuana here in the state of Utah, and we would have a bloated, already more bloated than what it currently is, a bloated Medicaid system here in the state of Utah. And let me tell you, if the Amendment D doesn't pass, what we're going to have in the state of Utah coming forward. This last year, we worked really, really hard. Model legislation around the nation. We pushed back on the garbage being forced on states by the federal government on our energy production. Okay? It was monumental. First state in the nation to do it. We told the federal government, no, we are not shutting down our coal power plants. We're not doing it. Okay? And by the way, this was led by Colin Jack and Representative because I'll never forget, Colin was sitting in the meeting. Rocky Mountain Power is on this hook, line, and sinker. They throw out a plan saying we're shutting down your power plants in 2032. So what the hell you mean we're shutting down the power plants in 2032? What are we going to replace it with? Well, we don't have figured out. Well, what do you mean you don't know you haven't figured it out? Am I wrong? No, this is literally. Well, we got some wind farms going in, we got some solar plants going in, and maybe we can get some nuclear by then. Well, how long does nuclear take to permit? Well, they're not permitting nuclear right now. Well, how long does nuclear permit if they, best case scenario, 12 years. Best case scenario, if they're permitting it and if it's rushed, 12 years. What's the cost? We don't know. It's billions and billions of dollars. What would it do to rate prices in Utah? We'll probably be looking at 3 times the cost of our energy here in the state of Utah. These are real conversations that we're having, and I'm very grateful that we have people like Colin and others in the legislature push back and tell Rocky Mountain Power, no, this is not a path we're going down. And we pushed back hard on the federal government. And we said, no, we're not doing this. And we passed legislation that protects our power plants, keeps it open. We want an all of the above option, right? How do you move? Like they're moving hard to electrify everything in this nation, cars, houses, all the other things. At the same time, they're shutting down our power plants. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Common sense has went out the window. Okay, we did it. Fierce opposition from every environmental group across the nation. We led the nation. After that, you had people standing up, power gen companies like Rocky Mountain Power, stand up saying Utah passed model legislation, other states need to do it. Well, guess what that does to the environmental community to the left? They become furious, right? Because now Utah set the trend, other states are going to follow, and we're going to move down that direction. So now this is being talked about, a ballot initiative to come in and put clean air in Utah. Okay, guess what clean air is going to do, right? We're shut down our refineries, shut down our power plants, to dictate what kind of cars you can drive or how, and those types of things. That's what they're doing. Clean air, polls, really well in Utah. I'm telling you, that will pass. And just the consequences that come of that, and the legislature not having the ability to do it. As we're getting ready to go into special session, I'm talking to one of the representatives that voted against the bill that actually likes ballot initiatives. He said, actually, I don't like the fact that the legislature had the ability to change it because it acted as a chilling effect with these groups, outside groups, coming into the state to run ballot initiatives. Because they know the legislature will change it and take out the police appeals, so they can't get the money behind it to fund it because they know that we're going to take that out. So what that Supreme Court decision did, I used to say the federal government was, and we'll talk about this here in just a minute, used to say the federal government was the number one threat to the state of Utah. I'm telling you that Supreme Court ruling is the number one threat to the state of Utah. Federal government moved to number two. I understand it's controversial. Do I want to be the one leading out on this? You've all seen my face on the news. The media is killing the crap out of me, power grab by the legislature, right? No, I'm trying to take back Utah back to the way it's been for the last 130 years, and I will stand up and I'll fight to do that.
Speaker, we have a follow-up since you're on this before you go. So they're asking if Amendment D doesn't pass, can the legislature create a better amendment in the general session?
So there's a little thought around, we can maybe define what alternative form of government is and some things like that. But likely not. And it would probably likely depend on the Supreme Court. By the way, we need some judicial reforms here in the state of Utah. It's a whole other conversation, okay? But likely not. And you never know. I'm a person that very rarely say never. So I'm never going to say never. But the chances of it are very unlikely because it would get struck down by the Supreme Court. So, and let's talk about abortion here for just a minute. We were very confident going to the Supreme Court that we were going to win. And they were going to throw out the case because Planned Parenthood doesn't have standing. And there's no way that you can, any reasonable, rational lawyer can make an argument, and a reasonable, rational judge or judges should ever dictate that Planned Parenthood has standing. This Supreme Court reached and allowed that injunction to stay in place. And there is an attorney out there that's really making conclusions on how they got to that. It's a problem. We recognize it. We're doing the very best we can to fix it, and we will continue to do what we can.
Speaker Schultz, when you say Supreme Court, are you talking U.S. or Utah?
Good question. I apologize. I did not differentiate the two. We're talking the Utah Supreme Court. Okay, the Utah Supreme Court. So, okay, now let's get to what I think is a little bit of the fun stuff. Public lands. Right? So, yeah, if you've read some of the national news media, some of the local news media a little bit, Utah legislature wants to sell off all your public lands. Did you know that? I came in, I'll never forget, and I got to give credit where credit's due. Ken Ivory, he's not here today. Yes, let's give Ken a round of applause. There has not been anybody more passionate than Ken on this. I'll never forget when I met Ken at the state convention. I just received the nomination at the state convention in the caucus system, by the way. So it was in 2014. Okay, it was in 2014, and it was before the 2015. It was for the 2014 election. Sorry. So it was in 2014. Ken Ivory had been elected 2 or 4 years, I can't remember, but I heard him give this passionate speech about how Utah needs to control its public lands. And what you heard all about me, I'm an outdoors guy through and through. The public lands in Utah is the number one reason I love Utah is the opportunities that it provides. I grew up camping all across the state, southern Utah, central Utah, Pingwich. It's one of my favorite places on the face of the surf, Pingwich Lake, and I could go all across the state and talk about the amazing places that we have here. And you all know it, too. I don't need to explain that. And so I was really excited to hear, because I was watching what some of the stuff that the federal government was doing in closing down the grazing and putting more regulations on it, and not allowing us to drill in certain areas or even at all, to be honest with you, to extract some of the oil and resources out there. But most importantly, their lack or failure to take care of the ground itself is so disheartening to me. And so I grew up watching the federal government manage the land. Some would argue they did an okay job in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And then it stopped sometime in the 90s. And they stopped managing. And they took a handoff approach. And it was sad to watch what our forests did. No more logging, right? So, they did away with that. Well, logging's a good thing, right? Logging, we don't need to go down that road. But anyways, they stopped managing it and took off the hands of the foot. Since that time, who's paying attention to what they're doing now? They've closed down 500 miles of roads. Closed down 500 miles of roads here in the state of Utah on federal land. They're slated to close thousands and thousands of miles more of roads. 1,000 miles of roads is like from here to Omaha, Nebraska, okay? That's a long ways. They're slated to close thousands and thousands of miles of roads on our public lands and control and cut off access. So no longer are they targeting the oil companies and the farmers and ranchers and those that have worked off the land forever. They're targeting the average person and trying to keep them off of our federal lands here in Utah. The new public lands rule, where SUA and these other environmental organizations can bid on the land to control it, to lock it up. That's just wrong. Under the name of conservation, I'm sorry, that's not conservation. It's just not. They've ruined that word in my eyes. And they've taken it a step too far. And so we've talked about suing the federal government for over a decade. And actually, if you go back to the 80s, it's been decades and decades ago. Utah and other states have done it. Utah, first state in the nation to step up and file the lawsuit August 20th. I'll never forget that day. We hope, we petitioned directly to the Supreme Court. We feel really good about our arguments based off the Constitution. The federal government was never, ever, ever, ever supposed to retain and own and control land in perpetuity. This was never supposed to happen. So we'll find out hopefully by the first of next year sometime whether or not the Supreme Court will take that up. It will not be some of these decisions take decades to get to the bottom of. This will go fairly quick because we're petitioned to go to the Supreme Court directly. And so within a couple of years, I hope that we know the state of Utah whether or not we have the constitutional right to those lands. So keep our fingers crossed. There's a little hope there. And I'll tell you, Paul Clement, Google him. He's our attorney. He's the #1 Supreme Court litigator in the nation. And he took our case. He wants it as a feather in his cap because he's about ready to retire. So there's a lot of good things happening on that front. We're super excited about it. Alexis asked me to talk about one of my main goals as speaker. And those of you that have heard me speak before, you'll know this. My main goal is to push back on the federal government overreach on the state, on this state of Utah. Utah cannot handle, I used to say the Biden administration, now the Harris administration. Utah cannot handle another 4 years of Harris administration. Something has to happen because the amount of regulations that they're forcing on this state to force us to become like California, Oregon, and Washington is unprecedented. I mean, I don't need to get into, we're gonna run out of time, but literally, they're trying to shut down our ability to expand our roads, to build another road, okay? In the state, completely in the state of Utah, okay? Because we may not meet their air quality goals, okay? Well, guess what? Their air quality goals are not even attainable here in Utah. They're based off of somewhere back east, okay? You could take every form of human existence out of the Salt Lake Valley and that basin and not meet the goal that's placed on the state of Utah. You think I'm kidding? I promise you, that's how ridiculous this is. These are the rules that are being forced upon us. I could go down the list. It is not okay, and we're done. We're gonna push back. And I think that you're seeing it, and I hope you see it. I don't want to do it just alone with just Utah. I was on the radio station in Alaska the other day trying to build support all across the nation to grab states to stand up, push back against the federal government, and say we're done. So that's my number one goal as Speaker of the House. Now, I want to talk a little bit. Yes, just the last. Congresswoman.
For 1 second.
Yes.
There's a silver lining on that one that I think people keep forgetting. With the Chevron case over there,
Yes.
states are much more powerful in pushing back to
Yes.
the for 40 years.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me about that. Yes. That is a silver lining that we just got handed to us by the United States Supreme Court a couple months ago, and that does give us a little bit of hope.
And Paul
So-
Clement argued that case as well.
Paul Clement did, yes. I'm telling you, Paul Clement is the real deal. It's what gives us hope. So, thank you, Congresswoman. Okay, I'm going to talk about your county for just a minute. Washington Iverson earlier. I had to get to know Washington County a little bit over the last 9 years since I've been in the legislature. As I've moved into positions of leadership, I get to know Washington County a little bit better. And since I've become speaker, I've gotten to know Washington County really well. And I'll tell you, you are very, 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 very well represented in I'm telling you that sincerely from the bottom of my heart. And the House members is the best delegation that I've seen. I just want to wish a couple of them. They're great people, and they work hard, and they care about the citizens of this county and the state of Utah, I'm telling you. Your commissioners and your leadership here, I wish I could Washington County whole state the better. So keep up what you have here. You have something special, and it's not easy. So keep it up. And we appreciate what you do and the representation that you bring to Capitol Hill. And honestly, a common sense approach. No offense to some of my good colleagues from Salt Lake County, even on the Republican side. It's just the Republican side. It's just frustration with the legislature. And I understand that. I really, truly do. Because I understand that. I mean, I'm speaker, and I have frustrations with the legislature sometimes too, okay? So I get it. But I just want to say this, and the House of Representatives and the legislature right now is as good as I have ever seen it. I promise you, the vast majority, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, there's some wingnuts out there, okay, just like in anything, okay? But the vast majority of the people in the Utah legislature are there for the right reasons. And it truly is an honor to serve with them. We may have different opinions on some certain things. Sometimes I may wish some of them were a little stronger. Sometimes they wish I'm a little too strong. We'll kind of battle back and forth some of that sometimes. And, you'll find out here in a minute, I'm going to say some things that's going to make every one of you mad at some point in time tonight. Okay. So, but I understand the frustrations that you may have, but I promise you, we're lucky to be in Utah. And I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, you have good representation overall in the state of Utah. And we're not perfect, but you look and compare ourselves to other states, and I'll put Utah up against any other state in the nation right now with their legislature. So it's an honor to be able to serve as Speaker of the House and represent not just my district, who I love very much, but the whole state. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you tonight. So I'm going to take questions, but before I do, I'm just going to set the stage a little bit. I'm gonna try and answer your questions. I'm not a normal politician, okay? I've never been a politician. I didn't think I'd ever call myself a politician. I still don't think of myself as a politician, although all you probably think I am. So I'm gonna accept it that I'm a politician, but I'm gonna sound different, okay? And I'm not gonna dodge your questions. I'm gonna be honest. And I'm gonna answer it from the bottom of my heart and to the best that I can. You may not agree with my answer, and we may have a difference of opinion sometimes. But I think Ronald Reagan said it best. He said, if we can agree together on 80% of the things, then I think we're friends and we're moving in a good direction. So with that, Alexis.
All right. After a long, hard fought primary, how do we unite our Republican Party and show unity again? And we had several people ask this one. And then what would you say to people in Utah who remain never Trumpers in the party?
Yeah. Well, great question. So there's two different questions. Remind me the second one in a minute, because again, although my mom told you I have the shortest attention span, okay? So coming back to the second one, I may forget it. But the first question, how do we unite as a party? It's not easy, right? We talked a little bit about what's happened on the nation front. We didn't talk about what's happening here in Utah. I mean, we're all aware of what's going on the governor's race. And, but you know, we have to take and we have to set some of our differences aside and move forward. I think the legislature has some things that they need to address moving forward on some voter integrity things that we've heard come out on several things. I sat down with some people today while I'm here in Washington County, and I learned about a couple of things that they think we need to address. We will address some of these things in the next session. I think they'll pass. I'm hopeful they'll pass. I'm supportive of them. There needs to be a few changes. There does. But we have got to come together as a Republican Party. I'm just here begging you to please come together as a Republican Party, because if we fight amongst the friends, the media has a heyday with it because the left wins. For the first time in 40 plus years, a Democrat has a real chance of winning here in Utah as the governor. And I get it. Some of you may not like Governor Cox. Some of you may love Governor Cox, and that's okay. But we have to come together, and we cannot let Brian King win. I like Phil Lyman. I've served in the House with Phil, I think 7 years. He's a friend. But for him to run a write-in campaign, it's wrong right now. There's other ways to affect change if that's what you want to do. There's no statistical possibility of winning. Okay, there'll be close to 1.5 million votes cast. Phil Lyman got just under 200,000, 194,000 votes, 195,000 votes in the primary. At a minimum, it's going to take 500,000 votes to win, at a minimum. The Democrat in the 2020 election got 440,000 votes, okay? So it's not likely that Brian wins, but it is possible. And we can't have that. And I know there's been some people say, well, I'll take Brian King over Governor Cox. We can't have that. You need to understand, just look at the federal government. Who's in charge of hiring every person in the executive branch? The governor. He has his deputies and his cabinet members that come down, and they hire every member of the executive branch. Legislature has no control over it. Yeah, I'm not worried about crazy policies. We'll keep some check on them. But you know what we have no check on? Is the people that get hired in the executive branch. Do you know how hard it is to get rid of a state employee once they get hired? It's darn near impossible. Those of you that deal with the federal government on federal lands issues and deal with the people hired under the Republican administration and then deal with somebody that's hired under the Democrat administration, what does that look like? Stark difference. And you never get rid of that person that was hired under the Democrat administration. The same thing will happen here in the state of Utah at our local level. I'm here to tell you, SUA will be running our DNR, our Division of Natural Resources. That is who will be running. And so I get there's frustrations out there, and some of it's rightfully so. Work with us to work collectively to make some changes. That's what I'm asking, that's what I'm hoping for, because the consequences of not doing that are great. I'm gonna take a question, I'm sorry, Alexis, then we're gonna do one, we're gonna come back. Yes, sir.
While we're talking about elections, we were all concerned down here about the deletion of the votes because the votes went down that were mailed in, went down to Vegas and back. And what can be done in the legislature to prevent that from happening again?
Yeah, I don't, it's a problem. And we didn't recognize that it was a problem. It is a problem that needs to be fixed. There's two solutions out there to fix that. I don't want to get really ahead of the details. I'm happy to maybe talk with you, and I gotta leave afterwards, but to get into the details, there's two solutions out there. I don't want to get into what those may or may not be right yet, because I think it needs to go through the process. But I think we'll take the time and it will be addressed. And because it is a problem, there's a chain of custody issue. I understand the concerns around that. There's that and several other issues that need to be addressed. And I think we'll look to address that. If it doesn't happen, hold us accountable, honestly, because it's something that needs to be worked on and be fixed. And we're gonna do our best to do that. So, great question. Alexis.
So along with elections, they also asked, other states are dealing with this, like Arizona, but what is the legislature doing to make sure there's no non-citizens illegally voting in our elections?
Yeah, good question. I'll be honest, just be honest. I think we do a pretty good job, but we can do better, okay? We can do better, and we're looking at some policies to be put in place to do a better job. There's a lot of talk going around where states are coming and they're purging their voter rolls, right? And Texas is one that just did it. I think there's another one or two that's done it. We don't get the credit. We did that 2 years ago here in the state of Utah. We started that process 2 years ago in the state of Utah. I came from a legislative audit. I ran the bill. I don't need to get to the drama behind it. I ran a bill in 2020 to audit every general election here in the state of Utah. Started and it took place in 2022. It came back, and if you read the media headlines, voting in Utah is perfect, basically, right? No problems. Well, that's not true, okay? There were some problems. Voter rolls was one of them. We found it. We put a process in place. Representative Corey Malloy ran the bill to work on the voter rolls. Utah is ahead of those other states that are getting credit for purging the voter rolls. We've already done it here in Utah. We do it on a regular basis. Is it perfect? Probably not. But guess what? We've got another audit happening right now of our elections, and we'll get that report back, and we'll see if progress has been made, and they'll come back with recommendations. And if you read the full audit and not the media headlines, you'll get an honest answer to what the elections look like here in the state of Utah. So, yeah, next question.
Okay, we heard about this special session for initiatives, but let's hear about the other special session that was this summer with Title IX and SB 57.
My favorite all-time bill of the Utah legislature, I have to say, came out of the Senate, SB 57. Didn't come out of the House. It was actually a Senate idea, unfortunately. But I used to say that the good bills come out of the House, the bad bills come out of the Senate. But they got the best bill, I think, ever to pass the Utah legislature. Utah, SB 57, Utah Sovereignty Act. If the federal government, which we know happens, passes a rule that we believe is unconstitutional, the legislature can convene itself and tell the federal government to pound sand, as I'm going to put it. They say, no, we're not going to implement those rules here in the state of Utah. Never in a million years did we think we'd be using it so soon. So we passed that bill in February, it was, and I think it was, May, when we came together in a special session to use that bill, where the Biden administration attempted to rewrite Title IX and allow males in locker rooms, in bathrooms, in female sports, and all the things. And by the way, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna say this. Utah is the only state in the nation to fully protect female sports. The only state in the nation to fully protect female sports. Other states have passed the outright ban. We passed the outright ban, but we put in place, and the courts threw that out. Anyways, where's the common sense, right? Courts threw that out. We're still fighting that. We'll see how that ends up. But we put in place a stopgap for the time being. When we knew the courts were going to throw that out, we put in together a commission that measures your wingspan, your body mass index, your lungs, all the things that differentiate a male from a female. It has successfully kept males out of women's sports here in the state of Utah. To my knowledge, there's not one male playing in female sports here in the state of Utah. Only state in the nation to do that. And so it really did have an effect on us. This rewrite of Title IX, allowing, basically saying however you declare your gender is, you're a female, if that's what you choose. Only state in the nation. And by the way, we, after we did that, the courts ruled in our favor and, put everything on hold. It was going to take it 5 years or so, however long it takes to work through the system. So we got some protections there. But we stood up first and we told the federal government, no, we're not doing that here in the state of Utah. People said, well, what about the federal money? I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. We'll figure that out if they take the federal money away from us. But we're not going to allow males in girls' locker rooms here in the state of Utah. We're the only state in the nation to pass something like that. You watch, there'll be other states that follow us and do something. So my favorite bill. Thanks for asking that one. I'm not sure who asked that.
All right, I know you gotta get to a flight,
No,
so you have time for
I'm
one
gonna
more.
go. No, we're
Okay,
gonna go cover.
here's another one, maybe to finish off, but when, can Utah vote on no tax on social security, and are they working on no tax for food on groceries?
Yeah, okay, so real quick, Representative Brooks, raise your hand. Representative Brooks has been a staunch fighter against reducing the tax on social security, and even trying to get rid of it. I think it'll come. We'll continue. It's a top priority. I think when Representative Brooks started for couples filing jointly, remind me if I'm wrong, but I think it was $30-something thousand before you had to pay Social Security tax. It's up to $76,000 today before you have to pay Social Security tax. So we moved in the right direction. We need to move and go further. I think we'll continue to make that a priority. Representative Brooks has let out on that, and we'll continue to work on that. What was the second part of the question?
Grocery tax as well, is the.
Grocery tax. You get the opportunity to vote on that in November. So with Amendment A, so the problem is, I don't have time to explain it, but there's some restraints on budgeting with the legislature, on things we can spend money on, things that we can't spend the money on. We have the general fund and the income tax fund. The income tax can only be spent on certain things. The sales tax can only be spent on certain things. Utah's been the fastest growing state in the nation. Our general fund hasn't kept up with the growth. Our income tax has exceeded the growth, okay? And so marrying it together, we think makes sense. The sales tax on food goes into the general fund, and if you remember what I said earlier, we have a budgetary problem where it hasn't kept up, and we have constraints placed around us. So that is Amendment A, and we're going to encourage you to vote for Amendment A. If that passes, that gives the legislature the flexibility to budget accordingly, which then frees up the money that we can reduce remove the sales tax on food at the state portion, the state level. And by the way, you don't have to take our word for it that we're going to do it. The bill's already passed. If you pass it at the ballot box, it automatically happens. So that's Amendment A.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yes.
I have a very liberal son who is freaking out about that because he's worried about education. He's a teacher, and he's worried about funding for education.
Yeah.
So how is that? What's my answer to him?
Yeah, there's no guarantees in place now. There's no guarantees in place now. So there's no guarantees that says that you're gonna get, did that go off?
At least that
Is
was
it back on? Maybe.
What was the question? What was the question?
The question is, there's concern that it's gonna hurt education funding. It's not the case. Look, our kids, the number one issue that we hear from constituents is education issues, whether that's funding, whether that's some of the stories that we all know are out there. It's number one thing. Utah will continue to fund education here in the state of Utah, and it will always be a top priority. We're a family state. Right now, depending on where we look at it, we're between first and third as a percentage of our budget gets spent on first or third, in between first and third, as a percentage of our budget goes to education here in the state of Utah. Now, when you look on a per pupil spending basis, we don't look that well, right? We used to be 50th, we're 48th now. We're moving in the right direction. We got a long ways to go. But it will always be a top priority, and it will continue to be a top priority here in the state.
Look at our history.
Yeah, you look at just what's happened the last couple of years and the amount of money that we put into education. And we do, education gets a lot of grief. And in some cases, and for some reason, rightfully so. Just came out, Utah has the second best education system in the nation. Second best. I think they're number one, and I guess, let's give them a round of applause, because they do work hard. It's about to get better. Where's Joanne? Joanne is going to be our new school board member. We're excited. Not to say that there isn't issues that we need to work on, because there is. But overall, we have a pretty good education system here in the state of Utah. And there's things that we can do, and we'll continue to work to improve on that. Yeah, more questions?
Are you sure?
I'm sure. No.
Okay, we
One
don't
more.
want to get you late. Okay, will the House support and introduce a constitutional amendment to protect life and ban abortion? So we don't risk our Supreme Court, like you talked about, ruling that abortion is protected under our Constitution.
So it is an option. And we've talked about it. It almost was done in a special session. There was a lot of give and take on this last special session that we did. However, we have to be strategic. We have to think this through. If we jump to that, there's a chance we lose, right? We still think we have two other shots at getting the bill that we passed, which bans it, put into law. Let's explore and try those other two options first. They're safer. And then if we have to move to that, we will try it. We will try it because that's our only option. But that is a very risky proposition, especially when you look at what's happening around the nation. Wait for November. Around the nation, that is going to get slaughtered on the ballots, those initiatives that are out there. And it's going to be a sad day. It really is. Now, we think we have a little bit better chance here in Utah of passing it. But if you look at the polling on it, it's not that great. It's pretty scary. And we're not ready to roll the dice on that yet. Let's try the others first, and then if we don't succeed there, then yes, we should look at it. One more question. Two more questions. What the heck? Oh, right, somebody asked about Trump, and I forgot. I told you I was going to forget about what about the never Trumpers, okay? Okay. You guys are going to hate me. You're going to throw me out when we're done. I talk. I'm like Greg Hughes used to say, you wind me up, put a quarter in my mouth, and you're never going to stop. Right? So I never thought I'd get to that point. But look, I'm going to go back to what I said a minute ago. Utah cannot handle another 4 years of a Democrat in the White House. We cannot. So I get, and I understand, there's frustrations we all have, right? And that everybody has around every politician, honestly. President Trump isn't a perfect human being. But we have to look at what's best for our country. We cannot allow the Democrats another 4 years. We will lose our state. state of Utah. We will lose it. It will be unrecognizable. We'll do all the things that I talked about, pushing back, tell the federal government to go pound sand. We'll win on several of them, I think. We're going to lose on others. But we will not be the same. And by the way, did anybody hear the announcement that was made at the DNC? You know, the DNC Convention Democrats a couple weeks ago, anybody hear what that was? You know who the next state is that they're going to turn purple? Utah. The Supreme Court decision gave them the pathway. The Utah Supreme Court decision that I talked about, that Amendment D is set to fix, gave them the pathway to turn Utah into a swing state. They did it in California. It is a blueprint that the Arnold Foundation and the Soros Foundation are doing across the country. Utah is the #1 target. We have a target on our back. I told you it was probably because of Representative Jack and his damn energy bill, right? But it's the right thing to do. We're going to continue to stand up. We're going to continue to fight. But we have to get a Republican in the White House. And I'm very supportive of President Trump.
All right, thank you so much.
One more?
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is one of your colleagues, they're gonna get you later, but someone asked, who's your favorite NFL football team? That might get you in trouble. That was the top one on my list.
I'm gonna make everybody mad. I don't like NFL. Hey, thank you all. I had fun tonight. It was truly an honor for me to be here with you, and thanks for listening to me. And again, reach out if you have any questions. You got a great representation. Many of them are here tonight. And thanks for all you do. And thank you for being involved in the Republican Party. And thanks for working to keep Utah conservative. Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna send you with a little Southern Utah treat as well. So take it to your family or eat it on the plane. But these are Dutch Spring cookies. We love them from St. Thanks for taking the trip down. We really appreciate it. Reach out to them if you didn't get to your questions. So, yeah. Thank you so much for coming tonight. One thing I forgot to announce, yes, thank you. On the way out, our Representative Neil Walter donated Trump signs to you guys. There's like one per person probably for this group. So if you want to take one, that was his donation to Republican women. So please take that on your way out. And we will meet again October 3rd for our next luncheon. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. We'll adjourn the meeting.
Hey, thanks for coming.